Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Please do hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It really does help when you do that. So today folks, this is a video I've wanted to make for a good few years now actually, and just haven't really got round to it. Now back in 2017 I think it was, I made a video comparing two legendary vintage distortion pedals, and it was these two pedals here. This is a 1977 MXR Distortion Plus, so a very early one, and this is a slightly later Boss DS-1 from 1982. And what we found in that comparison is these two pedals have pretty fundamental EQ differences between them. The Distortion Plus doesn't have a particularly thick low end or a particularly bright top end, but it has a real bite and snap in the upper mid-range. All of those frequencies that will get you heard in a mix. That's what this pedal has. That's why it's been so useful for guitarists over the years. Now, the DS-1 has a really thick low end on it, and with the tone control set anywhere above kind of 9 or 10 o'clock, a really gnarly abrasive top end on it. So you want to run the tone pretty low on this, usually. But it doesn't have too much in the way of bitey upper mid-range. And many of the people who have used this pedal over the years, Vai, Satriani, and every man and his dog in the 80s pretty much, those were very often modded DS1s to give you a bit more mid-range. And if you buy a modded DS1 nowadays that pedal manufacturers get from Boss, mod them and then sell them on to you, very often you'll find a fourth knob here which is a mid-control to dial in some of those frequencies that will get you heard in a mix. Because with the wrong set of circumstances, it's quite easy to get lost using a DS1 because it's really thick in the low end, you don't want too much of that razor top, and you just kind of get a bit swamped by the rest of the band. But two astonishingly great pedals. Now I wanted to make this video running both of these at the same time because I think those contrasting EQs will really slot together for a very full frequency, fat, bitey 80s rock guitar sound. So I was just going to split my guitar into these two pedals, put them each into a different amp and go with that. But as is my way, I got a little bit carried away. So rather than just using a passive splitter, I'm going to use a 1986 Boss Dimension C spatial chorus effect. Very synonymous with the 80s. So what I'm going to do is plug my guitar into the Dimension C. Output A is going to go into the DS1, and that's going into my JTM 45 clone. Output B is going to go into the Distortion Plus, and then for a little bit of extra 80s vibe, go into a 1984 DM2 before going into my Dr. Z DB4. Now, both of the amps are kind of Marshally type amps, and I'm going to set them a little bit crunchy, which is typically how people would have set their amps for use with distortion pedals. And then I'm going to put it all into Pro Tools, stack the pedals together in various different ways, show you on screen what I'm doing, and see if we can create the ultimate stereo, wet, dry, fat 80s distorted rock guitar sound. Now, one slight thing I am going to have to tweak. One of these two pedals, and I haven't actually bothered to find out which, flips the phase of the guitar signal when you turn it on. So we can get the amps perfectly in phase with each other, and then when we put both distortions on together, the phase is flipped on one of the amps. So I'm going to have to manually adjust that in Pro Tools so that I can have the basic amp sound in phase, and then when the distortions are on, reverse the phase of one of them so they're still in phase. Otherwise it gets super thin and boxy and doesn't sound very good. So that's a slight annoyance with many pedals on the market when running a wet, dry rig. But it's just something we're going to have to live with. So I'll show you on screen when I'm doing that. So let's see if we can create the ultimate 80s tone. Without further ado, folks, here we go. we are, folks. Now, please do comment underneath. Let me know what you were hearing today. Did you like the tones or not? I love chatting nerdy guitar stuff with you folks down in the comment section. Now, the Dimension C makes everything sound 80s by default, doesn't it? It's such a great effect. And as predicted, those opposing EQs of the two distortions really did slot together. That sizzly upper mid-range of the Distortion Plus with the fat low end of the DS-1, they just kind of stack so nicely for a very full frequency fat sound that you can still hear in a band mix. And having the delay just into one of the amps, I love wet dry setups for that. You can set it pretty extreme, but because it's playing off against a dry amp, it doesn't become overbearing on things, but it's still very obvious. So I really like that as an effect. But please do let me know your thoughts and opinions, folks. I love finding out what you think about all this sort of stuff. So thank you for watching. Please do click subscribe. I know I always say it, but it makes a huge difference when you do that. Please do go away and experiment with some 80s guitar tones of your own, because I think it's definitely overdue a comeback. And I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.